Hello, hello. This is Angel with Mastiff Home Buyers. Here today with our weekly tips and resources for property owners. Trying to make it more specific so folks will know what we're about and what we're doing here today or weekly here. Um, I am the CEO of Mastiff Home Buyers, as you all know, probably. We help people solve their real estate problems. One of the things we like to do is just share information, share tips, share expertise, not only our own, but also the expertise of others. So we will have guests periodically when I can schedule them in to talk to us about whatever it is that is the topic of the week, I guess. Um, Today, again, it's just me. And I am going to be pretty informal as always. I wanted to talk through a little bit about lease with option to purchase, or what we know as rent to own. Um, so, rent to own is a term that a lot of people are probably familiar with and probably have an obvious idea about what it is and what it means. But I wanted to share a little bit more detail. Um, my first property that I sold, I first attempted to sell it using a rent to own or lease with an option to purchase agreement. So, what that means is I found a person who was not qualified for a mortgage, but they had income, had jobs, so there wasn't any reason why they couldn't secure a mortgage at some point. We agreed on a price for the house that I was going to sell them, and I created a lease or a rental agreement for them to live in the property while they attempted to get their mortgage in place. So that is where the rent to own comes in, or the lease with the option to purchase. So the option is secures the right of those tenants who are going to be buyers. It secures their right to the property and to purchase the property, and ties me as the seller into selling to that person, whoever's on that agreement. It gives them time. Sorry, my throat always gets scratchy. It gives them time to get qualified, and but also allows them to have full use of the property as a tenant while they get qualified for the mortgage. So, what it does for me is, obviously, as the seller, it secures me a buyer. I am able to collect rent during the term that they are living in the property and not yet purchased it. During that time, me as the seller, the owner of the property, continues to pay for the taxes that are required to be paid on the property, as well as maintains insurance and full insurance of the property, because as the property owner, that's in my best interest to ensure that the property continues to be um, insured with an appropriate landlord policy. And we're not going to talk about that today, but that is a special policy that you want to have in place. So that lease term can be whatever you agree upon. Um, it can be short term, 6 months, maybe a year. It can be long term. It can be 5 years. It could even be 10 years if that's what you want to agree on. Um, but it just really needs to be agreed upon and written down on paper. I do use a real estate attorney to help me um, with my contracts to ensure that they meet the rules of the state that I'm in. Um, to make sure that I'm not violating anything or asking the tenants to do anything that would be um, out of the ordinary. So the tenants and I agree to the purchase price, and the I set the rent that they're going to pay during the time that they're renting the property before they purchase it. So um, my own home, that was the first property that I did this with. And we set up the lease term and the property price. And that price was a little bit higher than what the market value was at the time that we um, wrote up the agreement. As you know, there is appreciation in properties. So if you're going to set an agreement for 5 years out, you kind of have to estimate, what's the property going to be worth in 5 years. Um, and that then becomes usually the price of the property. So the tenants are agreeing to a price that maybe it's not going to appraise for today, but they know in 5 years it will, and that would be what they're paying for. So they agree to that price. um, Usually, the tenant also takes on a little bit more responsibility for the property maintenance than they would otherwise if they were just renters. So, if you've rented a property, you know that you call the landlord for really anything. Um, if you have issues with your refrigerator, if they've supplied that, you call them to have maintenance come over and fix it. If you have a doorknob that falls off or a window that won't close, those are things that you call the landlord to come maintain for you. But with a rent to own or lease with option to purchase, the tenant, the person who's living in the property, takes more responsibility for those kinds of things. Um, the landlord, me, home housing provider, I like to call myself, um, we take on responsibility for ultimately the habitability of the properties. I mean, I'm offering a person a safe place to live with a functional roof that's keeping the weather out off of their head, good foundation, no leakage from the foundation. Also, a good functioning plumbing, electrical, and HVAC system. Those are really the 5 areas that I, as the housing provider, continued to take care of. Some of those things would have been covered by homeowners insurance, other things not. But the other little things that needed maintained in the property is something that the tenant buyers take on, and that's really a win-win for both of us in a way that as the seller and the housing provider, I have to worry less about maintenance. It also gives the tenant buyers an opportunity to really understand what home ownership is about. And we know that when we're homeowners, when something breaks, we have to fix it. And we have to pay for it to be fixed. We don't call somebody and say, "Hey, come over and fix this," and it just happens. So we have to make the call. We have to find the serviceman. We have to make the arrangements. We have to pay for it or buy new if that's what's necessary. So that is just what it is like to be a homeowner. So the tenant buyers get to experience some of that without having to be responsible for absolutely everything because me, the housing provider, still maintains responsibility for some of those bigger things. Um, and my preference was to keep in place a warranty, a home warranty that would cover some of those big systems. So your roof and your foundation, those two things are hopefully covered by your homeowner's insurance if you have any problems, especially the roof. But your systems, your HVAC, your plumbing, your electrical, those things could be covered by a home warranty. And I think I paid it was less than $50 a month. I want to say it was around 45. Um, when I stopped it, I was paying about $45 a month for that home warranty, and it covered all of the main systems and things that would be needed to ensure the habitability of the property. So if the air conditioner went out, I called the home warranty company and put in a claim, and they sent out a technician to handle it. So most of that was then covered by the home warranty. I paid a hundred and I think it was $175 every time they had to go out. So, it wasn't like it was free for them to go out. But it was actually it might have been just been $75. 175 sounds like a lot, but I think it was 75 bucks. Anyways, you pay a service fee and most things are covered within that service fee. So it is a good thing to have for any homeowners, but especially if you are a landlord or housing provider who is offering lease to own, it is a really good thing to have. Very easy to access and put in a claim and send somebody out to take care of whatever the problem is. Um, so so what are the benefits and why bother doing this? Well, why we bother doing this? So there are lots of benefits, I think, for both sides. There are some downsides too. So from a seller perspective, the downside is I still own this house. I am responsible for assuring that it stays maintained and up to city code and whatnot because the city expects me to do that, not the tenant. And I am responsible for ensuring that it maintains insurance, and that I pay the taxes on it. Um, so that is in the seller's case, I still have responsibilities as it relates to that property, unlike when you just sell the house and you're released from all of those things. So for the tenant buyer, the uh, maybe not so great things are, they have to take on responsibility for maintaining the house more than if they were just renters. They also, um, have to pay rent, which is going to be a little bit higher than what they would be paying if they just got a mortgage. But the benefit is that the people who are needing a rent to own um, are often people who will not qualify today for a mortgage. So they can't qualify through the traditional mechanisms. And so being able to lease the property with that option, whole option to buy, allows them to use the property and to be in the property that they want to buy, and then they can have some time to get qualified. So sometimes it does take time. So what we do is we will help people connect with a lender, somebody to help them get a mortgage and help them with any credit counseling needs that they have or any other issues that might be in place that is preventing the person from getting a mortgage um, today. And we help them access those things that they need to get qualified, and they are living in the property using it until that happens. And once they are able to secure their own financing, we draw up a purchase and sale agreement, and they buy the house at the previously agreed upon price. So it is pretty simple. Um, and there really are a lot of benefits. As the seller, when we sold our house, we moved out of town, and we were able to put tenants in it pretty quickly, who wanted to buy the house, as we really didn't intend to keep the house, and did not want to be long distance landlords, because that's not really an easy thing to do unless you have resources in the city that you have a house. It's hard to sometimes manage that. So we didn't want to do that. It's fine for some people, but we did not want to do that. But we were able to find someone who wanted to rent the house, but also wanted to purchase it and needed some time in order to do that. So we were able to move out and move them in, within less than a week. So the house was vacant for less than a week, which was, good for me as the seller, because I um, turned the utilities over to them. All of the utilities shifted from my name, and I no longer had to pay those extra utilities. Um, and then we also uh, was able to assure that the property was being cared for. We didn't have to hire somebody to come over to mow the lawn, to make sure that the property was, not being violated, or nobody was, trying to get in it while it was vacant. Sometimes having a vacant house is really a high risk, and so we were really relieved to be able to have people be there, so we knew that the property was safe. And that we weren't going to have any issues with, people trying to break in, or damage being done to the property while it was vacant. So that is definitely a plus for us. For the tenants moving in, we actually gave them, the keys early. So their lease started on July 1, but we did give them access to the property prior to July 1. And that was in the lease that we gave them access prior to July 1, but the first rent was not due till July. Lots of landlords might advise against such a thing, but because they were wanting to purchase the property, we did let them have the keys, and uh, we felt that was better than having the property be vacant and us be, more than an hour and a half away. So we allowed them to get the keys and go ahead and start moving stuff, before their lease ended at their other place, and they had then time to move things in. So it was a great benefit for them as well, to have that time, and not have to worry about waiting, putting stuff in storage, or waiting until July 1, or getting it all moved all in one day, because that sometimes is very stressful. So I wanted to just share um, about lease to own. I think there are a lot of assumptions about lease to own. And in some instances, it doesn't work out. So in our case specifically, the tenant buyers who originally moved in, they leased the property for 5 years, but then they did not end up buying it. And so that was okay per the agreement that we made. They were not bound and they did not have to buy the property. You know, at the end of the lease term, we decided that it was best for us to go ahead and sell the property trying to, rather than continuing to lease it to them and just be landlords, or rather than trying to do another lease to own from far away. We just went ahead and put the property out there and sold it. Um, so it was when it really was a seller's market, and so it seemed like the timing was right to do that. Had the market conditions been different, we may have done a another lease to own, um, and continued that process. And sometimes that's the way that it is. But it is a huge benefit really to both ends, but there is a lot of uh, myths and discomfort about it in some cases. And that is unfortunate because it really is a good tool to help. We like to say help renters become homeowners. And if that's our end goal, is to make people homeowners, this is definitely a great tool to use. So we are um, kind of bounding our business model on this, where the houses that we do purchase, we intend to not just rent, but we do intend to have a rent to own um, agreements, because we really love the opportunity to give back and to help people become homeowners. That being, well, has been the American dream. I don't know if it will continue to be the American dream, as it sounds like, our millennial population and the younger crowd, may be less, that may be less of their dream. And they want to rent and not have the responsibility that's associated with home ownership. And it is a lot of responsibility. So, um, a lot of them are going back to being renters, and they don't want to buy. So that's okay. But hopefully, this has been helpful to just understand a bit about what we do, how we do it, get through an example of, what we've done in the past and kind of how it works. When we get properties that we're ready to lease to own, we do put those out through Marketplace. Zillow for sale by owner. We will list it out there. Sometimes apartments.com, different rental sites. And just note that it's includes an option to purchase. So we will continue to do that. And I know that it is a service that more people need. And I would like to find more people who are willing to sell their properties through a lease to own, because it certainly is. It could be a benefit to an individual who owns a house, particularly if it's free and clear. You put a tenant buyer in there, and you're getting paid, and you're not like you're a landlord, but you're not having to take on the responsibility of the full maintenance that you had to take on as a landlord. So there are definitely benefits there. If you want to learn more about that, I would be happy to have you reach out and uh, talk to me about that. We are, always also looking for properties. We would love to be your tenant if you own a property. We do look to lease properties from owners who are looking for a very good tenant, which would be us. We do sublease to others, but we then deal with the tenant issues and the things that go along with that rather than you, the property owner, having to do that. So if that is something that sounds nice to be able to collect a rent and not have to have the uh, landlord headaches that go along with it, give us a call. We would love to talk to you about how we could work out some kind of deal around that. So, again, my name is Angel, and I am with Mastiff Home Buyers, and I hope to have more information about rent to own and maybe some projects for you to see in the future. So I thank you for joining me and listening to this, and hopefully it's been helpful to you. Bye bye.